Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to explain and review an amazing new Chinese fantasy romance drama called The Elf Prince is My Baby Daddy. This story is filled with love, mystery, magic, royal secrets, emotional family moments, and unexpected twists that will keep you hooked from beginning to end. Imagine a young half-elf girl who has spent her entire life being rejected and looked down upon because of her bloodline. Then, after one unexpected night, her entire destiny changes forever when she becomes connected to the most powerful prince in the Elf Kingdom. But that's only the beginning. Hidden identities, magical powers, dangerous enemies, and shocking family secrets slowly unfold as she discovers that she is far more important than anyone ever imagined. So make sure you watch this video until the very end because every single moment of this incredible story leads to an unforgettable finale. And now, without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into today's drama. Lyra had never experienced a peaceful day in her life. Since childhood, she had lived under the shadow of discrimination simply because she was born as a half-elf. In the magical world of elves, bloodline meant everything. Pure-blood elves believed they were superior, while anyone born from mixed heritage was treated as weak, unworthy, and incapable of becoming someone important. Lyra grew up hearing those cruel words every day. No matter how hard she tried to prove herself, nobody was willing to give her a chance. Every time she entered the village market, whispers followed her. Children copied their parents' behavior and refused to play with her, while adults looked at her with cold eyes as though she did not belong among them. Despite the unfair treatment, Lyra never allowed hatred to consume her heart. She believed kindness was stronger than cruelty. Instead of seeking revenge against those who insulted her, she spent her days helping injured animals in the forest, collecting magical herbs for elderly healers, and quietly practicing the little magic she could control. Unfortunately, because of her mixed blood, her magical abilities remained weak compared to the other elves. Many people laughed whenever she attempted even the simplest spells, making her believe that perhaps destiny had truly abandoned her. Unknown to everyone around her, destiny was only waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. Far away from the quiet forest village stood the magnificent Star Kingdom, home to the strongest elf warriors and the royal family. At the center of that kingdom lived Prince Orlan, the future ruler of the Star Elves. Unlike many nobles who cared only about power and status, Orlan carried a strong sense of justice. He was admired for his intelligence, bravery, and extraordinary magical strength. Countless noble families dreamed of marrying their daughters to him, believing such a marriage would bring endless honor. Yet Orlan showed no interest in political marriages or meaningless royal celebrations. He spent more time protecting the kingdom than attending glamorous events. Although everyone admired him, Orlan secretly felt trapped by the expectations placed upon him. Every decision he made was watched by the royal council. Every friendship had to benefit the kingdom. Even his future marriage had already been planned by powerful nobles who wanted greater influence over the throne. Deep inside, Orlan wished he could choose his own path instead of living according to everyone else's plans. One evening, while investigating strange magical disturbances near the border forest, Orlan became separated from his royal guards. Dark magical energy filled the woods, making it almost impossible to sense direction. At the same time, Lyra had entered the same forest searching for a rare healing flower that only bloomed beneath the moonlight. She had no idea that dangerous magic was spreading across the area. As the mysterious energy grew stronger, magical creatures that were normally peaceful suddenly became violent. Lyra found herself surrounded by enchanted beasts whose glowing eyes reflected unnatural darkness. She tried defending herself with the small amount of magic she possessed, but it quickly became clear that she was hopelessly outmatched. Just when one of the creatures lunged toward her, a brilliant burst of starlight illuminated the entire forest. Orlan appeared between Lyra and the attacking beasts. With calm confidence, he raised his hand, releasing streams of dazzling silver magic that swept through the darkness like shooting stars. Within moments, every corrupted creature retreated deeper into the forest. Lyra stared at the mysterious stranger in complete shock. She had never witnessed magic so beautiful or so powerful before. Before either of them could properly introduce themselves, another wave of corrupted energy exploded from deeper inside the woods. The ancient magic surrounding the forest became unstable, creating a powerful magical storm. Strange glowing symbols appeared across the ground while enormous waves of energy surrounded both of them. Orlan immediately realized that this was no ordinary phenomenon. Someone had awakened forbidden magic that had remained sealed for centuries. The violent magical storm pulled both of them toward the center of the ancient ruins hidden beneath the forest. Their powers collided with a mysterious energy, activating an ancient spell left behind by forgotten elves. Neither Lyra nor Orlan fully understood what had happened that night, but from that single moment, their destinies became permanently connected. When morning arrived, the magical storm had completely disappeared. The forest looked peaceful once again, almost as though nothing unusual had happened. Orlan woke first, surprised to find Lyra unconscious nearby but completely unharmed. Relieved that she was safe, he gently helped her recover before making sure she could return home. Because royal duties demanded his immediate return to the Star Kingdom, Orlan left without revealing his true identity. Lyra only knew that the mysterious man who had saved her possessed extraordinary power unlike anything she had ever seen. Neither of them realized that the ancient magic awakened during that unforgettable night had already changed both of their lives forever. The consequences of that mysterious encounter would soon shake the entire elf kingdom, uncover secrets buried for generations, and begin a journey that would transform an ordinary half-elf girl into someone whose true destiny was far greater than anyone could possibly imagine. In the next part, the story will continue as Lyra discovers that her life has changed in an impossible way, while Prince Orlan returns to the royal palace unaware that fate has already tied their futures together forever. Several weeks passed after the mysterious night in the ancient forest, yet neither Lyra nor Orlan could forget what had happened. Although both of them tried to return to their normal lives, destiny had already begun weaving a path that neither of them could escape. Lyra often found herself thinking about the unknown man who had saved her without asking for anything in return. She did not know his name, where he came from, or why his magic felt strangely familiar whenever she remembered the brilliant silver light that had chased away the darkness. At the same time, Orlan had resumed his royal responsibilities inside the magnificent Star Palace, but his thoughts repeatedly wandered back to the kind-hearted half-elf girl he had met in the forest. Something about her calm courage had stayed with him, even though they had spent only a short time together. Life in Lyra's village remained as difficult as ever. The pureblood elves continued treating her like an outsider. Every morning, as she walked through the marketplace carrying baskets of herbs and healing flowers, she overheard whispers that reminded her she would never truly belong. Some claimed that half-elves brought bad luck, while others insisted that mixed blood could never produce powerful magic. Lyra lowered her head and ignored their cruel words, refusing to let bitterness take root in her heart. She had endured such treatment for most of her life, and although it still hurt, she chose to answer hatred with patience. One morning, while helping an elderly healer organize medicinal plants, Lyra suddenly felt an unusual wave of dizziness. The room seemed to spin around her, forcing her to grab the edge of a wooden table to keep herself from falling. The old healer immediately noticed her pale face and gently helped her sit down. At first, both of them assumed she had simply overworked herself, but after carefully examining Lyra using traditional healing magic, the elderly woman became completely silent. Lyra noticed the strange expression on the healer's face and asked if something was wrong. Instead of answering immediately, the old woman checked again, believing she must have made a mistake. However, the magical energy surrounding Lyra only confirmed the unbelievable truth. "You are carrying children," the healer whispered. Lyra stared at her in complete disbelief. For several long moments, she could not even speak. Her mind raced back to the mysterious night in the forest. That was the only possible explanation. The ancient magic that had surrounded her and the unknown stranger had connected their destinies in a way she had never imagined. Before Lyra could fully process the shocking news, the healer examined the magical aura one final time. Her eyes widened even further. "It is not one child," she said softly. "It is 3. Lyra's heart nearly stopped. She was expecting triplets. Fear quickly replaced the shock. She had no family powerful enough to protect her, no wealth, and no explanation that anyone would believe. The people in the village already searched for reasons to insult her. If they learned she was carrying 3 children without knowing the father's identity, their cruelty would become unbearable. Unfortunately, secrets never remained hidden for long. Within days, rumors spread throughout the village. Some claimed Lyra had brought shame upon herself. Others invented wild stories, saying dark magic had cursed her. People who had once ignored her now openly mocked her whenever she walked through the streets. Children repeated the insults they heard from adults, and several merchants even refused to sell supplies to her. Despite the endless humiliation, Lyra refused to surrender. She reminded herself that the innocent lives she carried deserved love, not regret. Every evening, she quietly placed her hands over her stomach and promised that no matter what happened, she would protect her children with everything she had. Far away in the Star Kingdom, another unexpected event was unfolding. Royal scholars investigating the ancient magical disturbance discovered traces of an extremely rare life-bond spell, one that had not appeared for centuries. According to ancient records, whenever such magic awakened, it permanently connected two individuals chosen by fate. The royal council immediately informed Prince Orlan after detecting that his magical signature had become linked to someone outside the palace. At first, Orlan could hardly believe what he was hearing. However, when the court magician completed a magical investigation, every doubt disappeared. The mysterious woman from the forest was carrying his children. The revelation stunned everyone inside the royal court. Several ministers immediately objected. They insisted that no future king could possibly marry an unknown half-elf. Noble families who had spent years arranging political marriages protested even louder. They argued that allowing someone of mixed blood into the royal family would disgrace the Star Kingdom forever. Orlan listened quietly as the arguments continued around him. Finally, he stood up. "The children are innocent," he said firmly. "And I will never abandon my responsibility." His calm voice immediately silenced the room. The king watched his son carefully. Although he understood the political consequences, he also recognized Orlan's unwavering sense of honor. After a long discussion, the royal family reached a difficult compromise. Orlan would travel to meet Lyra personally. To protect both her and the unborn children from growing public hostility, they would enter a contract marriage. Officially, it would satisfy the royal court and secure the children's future. Whether genuine feelings developed afterward would depend entirely on them. Without wasting another day, Orlan left the palace with a small group of trusted guards. Unlike the nobles who viewed the journey as a political obligation, Orlan's thoughts were focused entirely on Lyra. He remembered her kindness toward wounded creatures and the quiet strength she had shown despite facing danger. He wondered how she had endured these past weeks alone. Meanwhile, Lyra was sitting beside a peaceful river outside the village, trying to escape the endless whispers surrounding her. The cool breeze gently moved through the trees as she looked at the flowing water, wondering what kind of future awaited her children. Suddenly, several elegant royal carriages appeared on the distant road. Villagers rushed outside in confusion. They had never seen members of the royal family visit such a small settlement before. Everyone gathered along the streets as soldiers dressed in shining silver armor formed two orderly lines. The carriage door slowly opened. Prince Orlan stepped out with the calm confidence of someone born to lead. His royal clothes immediately revealed that he belonged to the highest rank of star elves. The entire village fell into stunned silence. Lyra looked toward the mysterious visitor. The moment their eyes met, she recognized him instantly. He was the man who had saved her life in the ancient forest. Slowly, Orlan walked toward her while hundreds of curious eyes watched every step. Stopping only a few feet away, he offered a respectful bow instead of looking down on her like everyone else always had. "Lyra," he said gently, "I've finally found you." The entire village gasped in disbelief. Before anyone could understand what was happening, Orlan calmly continued. "I know everything. I know about the children, and I know they are mine." A wave of shocked whispers spread through the crowd. Lyra stood frozen, unable to believe the words she had just heard. The mysterious stranger was not only the father of her unborn children, he was also the Star Elf Prince himself. And as every villager watched in complete silence, Orlan prepared to make an announcement that would change both of their lives forever. The entire village remained frozen in silence after Orlan admitted that the children Lyra was carrying were his. For a moment, nobody could believe what they had just heard. The same people who had mocked Lyra only moments earlier now stared at the Star Elf Prince with expressions of complete disbelief. Some wondered if they had misunderstood his words, while others exchanged nervous glances, unable to imagine why the future ruler of the Star Kingdom would claim responsibility for a half-elf woman. Lyra herself struggled to find her voice. Her heart was beating so fast that it felt impossible to think clearly. She looked into Orlan's calm blue eyes, searching for any sign that he was joking or acting under pressure, but she found nothing except honesty. You're really the prince?" she asked quietly. Orlan nodded with a gentle smile. "I wanted to tell you that night in the forest, but everything happened so suddenly. Before I could explain who I was, I had to return to the palace. I never expected destiny would bring us together again like this. The villagers listened to every word. Those who had spent weeks insulting Lyra slowly lowered their heads in embarrassment. None of them had imagined that the mysterious father of her children would be someone of such high status. Just then, one of the village elders stepped forward with a respectful bow toward Orlan. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "perhaps there has been some misunderstanding. Lyra is only a half-elf. Surely someone of your position cannot possibly—" Before the elder could finish speaking, Orlan's expression became serious. "There is no misunderstanding," he replied firmly. "Lyra deserves the same respect as anyone else. Her bloodline does not decide her value." His words echoed across the silent village. For the first time in her life, someone powerful had defended Lyra in front of everyone. She felt her eyes become moist. Years of loneliness, humiliation, and rejection suddenly seemed a little lighter. No one had ever stood beside her like this before. Orlan then turned toward Lyra. "I came here because I don't intend to leave you to face this alone," he said. "Our children deserve a safe future. I would like us to enter a contract marriage. Officially, you will become my wife, and no one will have the right to harm you or our children." Lyra remained silent. The proposal sounded unbelievable. Becoming the wife of the Star Elf Prince was something even noble families dreamed about, yet she knew this was not a marriage based on love. It was an agreement made to protect their children and satisfy the royal court. She lowered her eyes. "If this marriage is only because you feel responsible," she said softly, "you don't have to force yourself. I don't want your future to be ruined because of me." Orlan immediately shook his head. "This isn't about ruining my future," he answered. "It's about doing what's right. I won't abandon my family." His sincere voice carried a warmth that made Lyra feel unexpectedly safe. After a long moment of silence, she finally nodded. "I'll accept." As soon as those words left her lips, the royal guards respectfully bowed. The royal advisor unrolled a magical scroll prepared by the palace. Both Lyra and Orlan placed their hands upon the ancient contract, allowing their magical energy to seal the agreement. A soft silver light surrounded them before slowly disappearing into the air. The contract marriage had officially begun. Although the ceremony was simple, the news spread across the elf kingdoms faster than anyone expected. Inside the Star Palace, the announcement created complete chaos. Several noble families were furious. The future queen cannot be a half-elf. This decision will disgrace the royal bloodline. The prince has lost his mind. Many influential nobles demanded that the king cancel the marriage immediately. They argued that Orlan should marry a princess from another powerful kingdom instead of someone with mixed blood. The king listened patiently to every complaint before giving only one response. "The decision has already been made." His calm answer ended the discussion, but it did not end the growing resentment inside the palace. Meanwhile, Lyra prepared to leave the only home she had ever known. She packed the few belongings she owned into a small wooden bag. There was very little to take: some clothes, a collection of healing herbs, and a necklace that had belonged to her late mother. She gently held the old necklace in her hand, remembering the woman who had always told her that kindness would one day be rewarded. Standing outside her small cottage, Lyra took one last look at the village. Even though it had been filled with painful memories, it was still the place where she had grown up. Orlan approached quietly. "Are you ready?" he asked. Lyra smiled faintly. "I think so." The royal carriage began its journey toward the Star Kingdom. For Lyra, every mile felt like she was stepping into an entirely different world. As the palace finally appeared on the horizon, she could hardly believe her eyes. Towering crystal towers reflected sunlight like thousands of stars. Magical gardens stretched across the mountainside, glowing with flowers that bloomed in every season. Waterfalls shimmered with enchanted light, while elegant bridges connected magnificent buildings built from silver stone. It was more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined. But beneath that beauty hid countless dangers. The moment Lyra entered the palace gates, hundreds of nobles gathered to witness the arrival of the prince's new wife. Some looked curious. Others looked disgusted. Their whispers followed her wherever she walked. "So she's the half-elf. She doesn't belong here. How could His Highness choose someone like her?" Every sentence pierced Lyra's heart, Yet she kept walking beside Orlan with quiet dignity. One young noblewoman stepped forward with a confident smile. She was Lady Celine, the daughter of one of the kingdom's most powerful families and the woman many believed would eventually marry Orlan. She gracefully bowed to the prince before turning her attention toward Lyra. "So this is the famous bride," Celine said politely, though her smile never reached her eyes. "Welcome to the palace." Lyra returned the greeting respectfully. "Thank you." Celine slowly circled around her, carefully examining every detail. "I've heard quite a lot about you," she continued. "Life in the palace is very different from life in a small village. I hope you'll be able to adjust." Her words sounded kind, but everyone nearby understood the hidden insult. Lyra simply smiled. "I'll do my best." Celine's expression tightened for a brief moment. She had expected Lyra to become nervous or angry, but instead she remained calm. Watching from nearby, Orlan immediately sensed the tension. He walked over to Lyra without hesitation. "My wife has traveled a long way," he said. "She needs to rest." Without waiting for anyone's response, he gently offered Lyra his arm and escorted her inside the palace. The simple gesture shocked everyone present. Never before had Prince Orlan shown such public care toward any woman. As they disappeared into the royal residence, jealous whispers spread through the noble crowd. Lady Celine watched them leave, her smile slowly fading. Deep inside, she refused to accept that an ordinary half-elf had taken the place she believed belonged to her. At that very moment, hidden within the deepest chambers beneath the palace, an ancient magical crystal suddenly began to glow with a mysterious green light. The elderly royal guardian responsible for protecting the sacred relic stared at it in astonishment. "This aura," he whispered. "It hasn't appeared for nearly 20 years. The magical crystal continued shining brighter with every passing second, reacting to a presence somewhere inside the palace. Unknown to everyone above, the ancient relic had recognized something hidden within Lyra herself. A forgotten royal bloodline was beginning to awaken. Life inside the Star Palace was nothing like Lyra had imagined. The magnificent halls, sparkling crystal chandeliers, and breathtaking gardens made the palace look like a dream, but beneath its beauty was a world filled with strict traditions, hidden rivalries, and silent judgment. Every step Lyra took seemed to attract curious eyes. Servants whispered behind her back, noble ladies watched her with cold smiles, and many members of the royal court openly questioned whether a half-elf deserved to stand beside Prince Orlan. Although the criticism surrounded her every day, Lyra refused to let it change who she was. She greeted every servant politely, thanked the palace staff for their kindness, and never responded with anger whenever someone insulted her. Her calm and gentle nature slowly earned the respect of a few people, especially the older servants who had worked in the palace for decades. They noticed that unlike many nobles, Lyra treated everyone equally, regardless of their rank. Orlan also kept his promise. Despite his busy schedule as the crown prince, he always found time to check on Lyra. Every morning before attending royal meetings, he visited her courtyard to make sure she had eaten breakfast and was feeling well. Since she was expecting triplets, the royal physicians carefully monitored her health every day. To everyone's surprise, the babies were growing unusually strong. Their magical energy was already noticeable even before birth, something the physicians had never witnessed before. One afternoon, Orlan invited Lyra to walk through the palace's famous Star Garden, a peaceful place filled with glowing flowers that bloomed under both sunlight and moonlight. It was the first time since arriving at the palace that Lyra felt truly relaxed. "They're beautiful," she whispered as tiny glowing butterflies flew around the flowers. "My mother loved this garden," Orlan replied with a gentle smile. "Whenever I had problems as a child, she brought me here. She always said the stars shine brightest after the darkest night." Lyra smiled softly. "She sounds like a wonderful person." She was. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt comfortable instead of awkward. Finally, Orlan looked at Lyra. "I know this marriage began because of responsibility," he said honestly. "But I want you to know something." Lyra turned toward him. "You'll never have to face this palace alone." His words warmed her heart far more than she expected. She realized that although their marriage had started as an agreement, Orlan had never treated her like an obligation. He respected her opinions, cared about her feelings, and defended her whenever others tried to humiliate her. For the first time, Lyra began wondering whether fate had brought them together for a reason far greater than either of them understood. Unfortunately, not everyone welcomed the growing bond between them. Lady Selene watched their relationship with increasing jealousy. She had spent years believing she would one day become Orlan's wife. Her family had invested enormous effort into strengthening ties with the royal family, and suddenly everything had been ruined by a woman she considered beneath her. "This cannot continue," Selene said coldly while speaking with her father in their private residence. Lord Valen, one of the kingdom's most influential nobles, narrowed his eyes. "The prince's feelings are becoming dangerous," he replied. "If the people begin accepting Lyra, removing her later will become much more difficult." Selene folded her hands. "Then we should make sure the palace never accepts her." The two exchanged silent smiles. Their plan had already begun. A few days later, Queen Alara announced the annual royal blessing ceremony, one of the most important traditions in the Star Kingdom. Every member of the royal family was expected to attend. During the ceremony, the sacred crystal of stars would respond to the magical energy of those standing before it. The crystal had served as a symbol of the royal family's divine blessing for generations. Many nobles secretly looked forward to the event. They believed the crystal would reject Lyra because of her mixed blood. "If the sacred crystal refuses to acknowledge her," one noble whispered, "the prince will have no choice but to reconsider this marriage." The day of the ceremony finally arrived. The enormous royal hall was filled with nobles, ministers, knights, and distinguished guests from neighboring kingdoms. The sacred crystal stood proudly at the center of the room, glowing with soft silver light. One by one, members of the royal family stepped forward. Each received a gentle blessing from the crystal. Finally, it was Lyra's turn. The hall became completely silent. Many people watched with hidden excitement, hoping to witness her humiliation. Lyra slowly approached the crystal. She took a deep breath before placing her hand against its smooth surface. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Quiet laughter spread among the nobles. "I knew it. Even the sacred crystal rejects her. She's unworthy." Lyra lowered her eyes, trying not to let the whispers affect her. But just as she began removing her hand, the crystal suddenly trembled. A brilliant silver light exploded throughout the hall. Everyone instinctively covered their eyes. The sacred crystal, which had remained calm for centuries, suddenly released countless beams of light that surrounded Lyra like floating stars. Gasps echoed across the room. "What? That's impossible." The silver light gradually transformed into a breathtaking emerald glow unlike anything recorded in royal history. The ancient crystal seemed to resonate with Lyra's presence. Even the royal priests looked completely stunned. One elderly priest hurried toward the crystal while reading the glowing magical symbols appearing across its surface. His hands began trembling. This cannot be." The king stood up immediately. "What did you see?" The priest slowly turned toward the royal family. "The crystal isn't rejecting Lady Lyra." He paused, unable to believe his own words. "It's responding to an ancient bloodline, one older than the Star Kingdom itself." The entire hall fell into complete silence. Before anyone could ask another question, the emerald light suddenly disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. The crystal returned to normal. Lyra looked around in confusion. I don't understand." Neither did anyone else. Only one person seemed deeply disturbed. Hidden among the crowd stood an elderly woman wearing dark robes. Unlike the others, she showed no surprise. Instead, fear filled her eyes. "So it's true," she whispered to herself. "The wood elf blood has awakened." Without waiting for the ceremony to end, the mysterious woman quietly disappeared from the palace before anyone noticed her. Meanwhile, Lord Valen and Lady Selene exchanged worried glances. Instead of embarrassing Lyra, the ceremony had made her even more mysterious. If the royal court began investigating her origins, secrets buried for decades might finally come to light. And somewhere deep within the ancient forests, a forgotten temple that had remained silent for many years suddenly awakened. Ancient runes carved into massive stone walls began glowing with the same emerald light that had surrounded Lyra. The guardian spirits of the old wood elf kingdom slowly opened their eyes. "The lost princess." One of the ancient spirits whispered. "She has finally returned." The unbelievable events at the royal blessing ceremony quickly became the only topic anyone in the Star Kingdom could talk about. Every noble, servant, knight, and royal advisor had witnessed the sacred crystal react to Lyra in a way that had never happened before. Instead of rejecting her because of her mixed blood, the ancient relic had released a mysterious emerald light unlike anything recorded in history. Some believed it was a blessing from the ancient spirits, while others feared it was a warning of an unknown danger. Lyra, however, understood none of it. She returned to her chambers feeling more confused than ever. Ever since arriving at the palace, strange things had continued happening around her. First, the ancient magic in the forest had connected her destiny with Orlan. Then she discovered she was carrying triplets. Now the sacred crystal had responded to her with an unfamiliar power that even the royal priests could not explain. She quietly sat beside the large window overlooking the palace gardens, gently placing both hands over her growing stomach. "What is happening to me?" she whispered. The triplets suddenly responded with small movements, making Lyra smile despite all her worries. Every time she felt them move, she remembered why she had to stay strong. No matter how many challenges lay ahead, she could not allow fear to control her. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. When the door opened, Orlan entered carrying a tray with fresh fruit and warm herbal tea. "I thought you might not have eaten after everything that happened today," he said with a warm smile. Lyra looked at him with surprise. "You brought all this yourself?" Orlan laughed softly. "I know the servants could have done it, but sometimes I prefer doing small things myself." Lyra could not help smiling. For a prince who commanded armies and attended royal councils, Orlan never acted as though helping someone was beneath him. He placed the tray on the table before sitting across from her. "I've already spoken with the royal priests," he said. "And they don't have answers." Lyra sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." For a moment, silence filled the room. Finally, Orlan looked directly into her eyes. "Whether you're an ordinary half-elf or someone connected to ancient magic doesn't matter to me." Lyra blinked. "You are still the same person I met in the forest." Those simple words carried more comfort than any explanation could have given. For the first time since arriving at the palace, Lyra truly believed she had someone she could trust completely. Meanwhile, far beyond the borders of the Star Kingdom, hidden deep inside an ancient forest untouched by time, the mysterious old woman who had left the ceremony arrived at a forgotten temple. Massive stone pillars surrounded the sacred ruins, their surfaces covered with glowing green runes. Ancient statues of wood elf kings and queens stood silently beneath enormous trees whose branches reached toward the sky. The elderly woman slowly knelt before an ancient altar. "The signs have appeared," she whispered. Within seconds, several figures wearing emerald robes stepped out from the shadows. They were the remaining guardians of the lost wood elf kingdom. One of them spoke. "Have you confirmed it?" The old woman nodded. The sacred crystal recognized her. A heavy silence followed. An elderly guardian with silver hair slowly closed his eyes. "So, after all these years, the princess is alive." The words echoed throughout the ancient temple. Years earlier, the Wood Elf Kingdom had mysteriously disappeared from history. Many believed its royal family had been completely wiped out during a terrible conflict that no one spoke about anymore. Only a handful of loyal guardians knew the truth. The youngest princess had survived. To protect her from those hunting the royal bloodline, she had been secretly taken away as an infant and hidden among ordinary elves. That child was Lyra. Back at the Star Palace, none of this had yet been revealed. Instead, Lord Valen had already begun preparing another plan. "If public opinion begins changing," he told Celine during a private meeting, "we'll lose our influence over the royal family." Celine folded her arms. "Then we'll make sure everyone sees Lyra as a danger instead of a blessing." Lord Valen smiled coldly. "The Harvest Festival begins tomorrow." Celine immediately understood. Every year, members of the royal family personally blessed magical crops that fed the entire kingdom. Thousands of citizens attended the celebration, making it one of the largest public events in the kingdom. If something went wrong there, everyone would blame Lyra. The following morning, colorful banners decorated every street leading toward the royal fields. Families gathered from every corner of the kingdom to celebrate the successful harvest. Music filled the air as children laughed and merchants displayed magical fruits and enchanted flowers. For many ordinary citizens, It was a day of happiness. Lyra had never attended such a festival before. Everything around her felt magical. Orlan noticed the excitement in her eyes. "Would you like to walk around before the ceremony begins?" he asked. "I'd love to." The two quietly explored the festival together. Unlike the nobles inside the palace, many common people were curious rather than judgmental. Some respectfully greeted their prince, while children smiled at Lyra without knowing anything about royal politics. One little girl shyly walked over holding a small white flower. "For you," she said. Lyra smiled warmly before accepting the gift. "Thank you." Watching the scene from a distance, Orlan realized something important. People judged Lyra far less than the nobles did. Perhaps the future of the kingdom could truly change. Unfortunately, danger had already entered the festival. Hidden among the performers were several mercenaries secretly hired by Lord Valen. Their mission was simple: release corrupted magical beasts during the blessing ceremony. Once panic spread, everyone would believe Lyra's mysterious magic had caused the disaster. The ceremony soon began. The king stood before thousands of citizens, while royal priests prepared the traditional blessing. Orlan and Lyra stepped forward together. Just as the chief priest raised his staff, a terrifying roar echoed across the fields. The ground shook violently. Several enormous shadow wolves burst out from nearby forests, their eyes glowing with dark purple energy. They charged toward the frightened crowd, sending people running in every direction. Screams filled the festival. Parents grabbed their children, while merchants abandoned their stalls. Royal guards rushed forward, but there were too many creatures. Orlan immediately summoned his brilliant silver magic. "Protect the civilians," he ordered. Knights quickly formed defensive lines. Lyra watched in horror as one frightened child became separated from his parents. Frozen with fear, the little boy stood directly in the path of one charging beast. Without thinking about her own safety, Lyra ran. "Lyra!" Orlan shouted. The enormous shadow wolf leaped toward the child. At that exact moment, an incredible emerald light exploded from Lyra's body. The entire battlefield froze. Ancient vines suddenly burst from beneath the earth, wrapping around the corrupted beast before gently pushing the terrified child safely behind Lyra. The glowing plants continued spreading across the fields, creating living walls that shielded innocent people from danger. Flowers instantly bloomed wherever the emerald light touched. Everyone stared in complete astonishment. Even Orlan lowered his sword for a moment. He had never witnessed magic like this before. It did not destroy. It protected. The frightened child looked up at Lyra with tear-filled eyes. You saved me." Before Lyra could respond, another wave of emerald light spread across the battlefield, healing injured civilians and calming the corrupted magical beasts instead of harming them. One by one, the monsters stopped attacking. The darkness surrounding them slowly disappeared. Within minutes, the entire battlefield became silent. Thousands of people stood speechless. No one had ever seen magic capable of healing both people and magical creatures at the same time. Far away, hidden among the crowd, Lord Valen clenched his fists in fury. His carefully planned attack had completely failed. Instead of turning the kingdom against Lyra, he had unknowingly given everyone a chance to witness her extraordinary kindness and miraculous power with their own eyes. And for the first time since arriving at the palace, the ordinary citizens of the Star Kingdom no longer saw Lyra as the prince's unwanted bride. They began seeing her as someone chosen by destiny. The harvest festival ended in a way no one could have predicted. Instead of remembering the attack, the people spoke only about the miracle they had witnessed. Everywhere throughout the Star Kingdom, stories spread about the prince's gentle wife whose mysterious emerald magic had protected innocent families without harming a single creature. Parents told their children how Lyra had risked her own safety to save a little boy she had never met. Merchants praised her kindness, and even many soldiers admitted they had never seen magic as pure and compassionate as hers. For the first time in her life, Lyra experienced something she had almost forgotten was possible: acceptance. As Orlan and Lyra returned to the palace, servants who had once avoided her now greeted her with sincere smiles. Some even bowed respectfully. It was a small change, but Lyra noticed it immediately. She understood that not everyone had suddenly become her friend, yet seeing genuine kindness instead of cold rejection filled her heart with hope. Not everyone shared that feeling. Lady Selene stood by the palace balcony, watching the people outside cheer whenever Lyra's carriage passed through the royal gates. Her expression darkened. "This should have been my place," she whispered. Lord Valen stepped beside his daughter. "We underestimated her." Celine looked at him impatiently. "So what now?" Lord Valen remained silent for several moments before speaking. "If we cannot destroy her reputation, then we must uncover the secret behind her power." Meanwhile, inside the royal council chamber, the king had gathered the kingdom's greatest scholars, priests, and historians. Ancient books covered the long wooden table as everyone searched for an explanation behind Lyra's extraordinary magic. One elderly historian carefully opened a dusty manuscript that had not been touched for generations. "There is only one bloodline recorded in history with powers like these," he explained. "The royal family of the Wood Elves." The room fell silent. Another scholar quickly added, "Their magic was said to heal forests, calm magical beasts, and restore life itself. Unlike Star Elf magic, which excels in combat, Wood Elf magic exists to protect and preserve balance." The king slowly leaned back in his chair. "Are you suggesting Lady Lyra may be connected to that royal family?" The historian hesitated. "I cannot prove it. But the similarities are impossible to ignore." Orlan listened carefully without saying a word. Deep inside, he remembered every strange event since meeting Lyra. The ancient ruins, the life-bond spell, the sacred crystal's reaction, and now the miraculous power displayed at the festival. Everything pointed toward the same conclusion. Lyra was hiding a past that even she did not know. That evening, Orlan visited Lyra's chambers. She was standing in the garden outside, watching fireflies dance among glowing flowers. "You've been thinking all day," Lyra said as soon as she noticed him approaching. Orlan smiled. "You know me well already." She laughed softly. "I think I'm starting to." For a moment, they simply enjoyed the peaceful evening together. Finally, Orlan spoke. "The scholars believe your magic may come from the ancient Wood Elf royal family." Lyra slowly lowered her eyes. "I've never even met another Wood Elf." "I know. My mother never spoke about my father," Lyra continued quietly. "She only told me that I should always protect others, even if no one protected me." Orlan noticed sadness in her voice. "Do you still have anything that belonged to her?" Lyra nodded. "The necklace." She reached beneath her clothing and removed the small silver necklace she had worn since childhood. Orlan examined it carefully. At first it appeared ordinary. Then, as moonlight reflected across its surface, faint emerald symbols briefly shimmered before disappearing again. Orlan's eyes widened. "This isn't ordinary jewelry." Before either of them could study it further, the necklace suddenly grew warm in Lyra's hand. The glowing symbols became brighter than before. Without warning, a thin beam of emerald light shot into the night sky. Miles away, hidden deep within the ancient forest, the guardians of the lost Wood Elf kingdom looked upward simultaneously. "The royal seal has awakened," one guardian whispered. "The princess is calling." The elderly guardian who had recognized Lyra during the royal blessing ceremony immediately stood. "It is time." Back at the palace, everyone stared at the fading light in confusion. Royal guards rushed into the courtyard. "Your Highness." "What happened?" Orlan calmly shook his head. "I don't know." But someone else had witnessed everything. Hidden behind a stone pillar stood Lady Celine. She had secretly followed Orlan, hoping to discover something suspicious. Instead, she had seen the glowing necklace. Her eyes narrowed. "So that's the source." She quietly slipped away before anyone noticed. The following morning, the palace returned to its normal routine, but beneath the calm surface, several plans were already unfolding. Lord Valen had ordered his spies to steal Lyra's necklace. The Wood Elf Guardians had begun traveling toward the Star Kingdom. And unknown to everyone, a far greater enemy had finally awakened. Deep beneath the Black Mountains, inside a fortress abandoned centuries ago, dark magical energy slowly gathered around an enormous stone throne. A mysterious figure dressed in black robes opened his eyes after years of silence. His face remained hidden beneath a hood, but the air around him was filled with terrifying power. One of his followers hurried into the chamber before kneeling. "My lord." The figure remained silent. "The emerald aura has appeared again." For several long moments, only silence answered. Then the mysterious ruler slowly rose from his throne. So, the last princess survived. His cold voice echoed through the fortress. I should have expected the royal bloodline would not disappear so easily. The follower nervously lowered his head. What are your orders? The dark ruler looked toward the distant horizon. Find her. I want the wood elf princess brought to me. And if anyone stands in the way. He paused before finishing his sentence. Remove them. Far away at the Star Palace, Lyra had no idea that powerful enemies from the past had already begun searching for her. She believed life might finally be becoming peaceful. She could not have been more wrong. As she stood on the palace balcony later that afternoon, a gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers through the air. She smiled as she felt one of the babies kick. Orlan stood beside her. They're becoming more active. They are, Lyra replied happily. Orlan gently placed his hand near hers. Almost instantly, another tiny movement could be felt. The two looked at each other before laughing. For a brief moment, the palace, the politics, and the mysteries surrounding them all disappeared. They were simply two parents excited about meeting their children. Neither of them realized that this peaceful moment would. The peaceful days that followed were short-lived. Although life inside the Star Palace seemed calm on the surface, an invisible storm was gathering from every direction. While Lyra spent her time preparing for the arrival of her babies and learning the customs of the royal family, others were secretly making plans that would change her life forever. One morning, the palace was unusually quiet. Orlan had left early to attend an important meeting with the king and the royal council regarding the kingdom's border security. Before leaving, he reminded Lyra not to overwork herself. You've been walking around the gardens too much lately, he said with a gentle smile. Lyra laughed softly. If I stay inside all day, I'll go completely bored. Orlan shook his head, pretending to be serious. The royal physician would blame me if you became tired. I'll be careful. He smiled before gently placing his hand over hers. I'll return before sunset. Watching him walk away, Lyra realized something had changed inside her heart. At first, she had accepted the contract marriage only to protect her children, but now she found herself looking forward to every conversation they shared. Orlan had never treated her with pity or superiority. Instead, he respected her, trusted her, and always stood beside her whenever others questioned her worth. Without realizing it, the distance between them had slowly disappeared. Later that afternoon, while Lyra was reading in the palace garden, an elderly servant approached her respectfully. Your Highness, the servant said with a bow, there are visitors requesting a private audience. Lyra looked surprised. Visitors? They say they have traveled from the eastern forests. Curious, Lyra agreed to meet them. She entered one of the smaller reception halls, where three elderly travelers waited quietly. They wore simple green robes decorated with delicate leaf patterns. At first glance they appeared to be ordinary wanderers, but there was something unusual about them. The moment Lyra stepped into the room, all three stood up and bowed deeply. My lady, the oldest among them said. Lyra immediately looked confused. You don't have to bow to me. The elderly man slowly raised his head. His silver hair and kind eyes gave him the appearance of someone who had witnessed countless years pass by. We have waited a very long time to meet you. Lyra frowned. I'm afraid you've mistaken me for someone else. The old guardian smiled gently. No. We have finally found the princess of the Wood Elves. The words echoed through the silent room. Lyra stared at them, completely speechless. I'm not a princess. You are, another guardian replied calmly. You simply don't remember. The oldest guardian carefully reached into his robe before removing an ancient wooden box carved with glowing emerald symbols. This belonged to your mother. Lyra's breathing slowed. My mother. The guardian nodded. Many years ago, the Wood Elf Kingdom was attacked by those who desired its sacred power. Your parents knew the royal family would be hunted until every last heir disappeared. To save your life, they secretly entrusted you to loyal protectors before the kingdom fell. Lyra struggled to absorb every word. My mother told me almost nothing. That was to protect you. The guardian slowly opened the wooden box. Inside rested a beautiful emerald crown, unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. Tiny vines made of crystal wrapped around it, while soft green light flowed through its delicate branches. The moment Lyra looked at the crown, a sharp pain rushed through her head. Suddenly, countless images flashed before her eyes. She saw a magnificent forest kingdom glowing beneath ancient trees. She saw a beautiful woman wearing the same emerald crown smiling warmly while carrying a small child. She heard laughter, then screams. Dark flames spread across the kingdom as soldiers wearing black armor invaded the palace. Trees collapsed, magical beasts roared in terror, and the peaceful kingdom was swallowed by chaos. A woman embraced a crying little girl. "My precious Lyra," she whispered through tears. "You must survive." The child reached toward her parents as loyal guards carried her away. The vision ended. Lyra staggered backward, barely managing to remain standing. Orlan had just returned to the palace when he sensed an unusual. Dark clouds gathered over the Star Kingdom as if the sky itself had sensed the danger approaching. News of strange armies moving beyond the Black Mountains spread rapidly through the royal capital. Scouts returned one after another, each bringing the same alarming report. Villages near the border had seen thousands of soldiers dressed in black armor, accompanied by creatures corrupted by dark magic. No one knew exactly when they would attack, but everyone agreed on one thing: the kingdom had very little time to prepare. Inside the Star Palace, the atmosphere became tense. Without another word, Darius raised his black sword and unleashed an enormous wave of dark magic. The sky became almost completely black as shadows rushed toward Lyra and Orlan. Before the attack could reach them, Orlan stepped forward and released a brilliant burst of silver starlight. At the same time, Lyra raised her hands, and countless emerald vines emerged from the earth. The two magical powers merged together. Silver and emerald light intertwined beautifully, creating a massive shield that completely blocked the incoming darkness. Everyone watching the battle stood speechless. The ancient legends had spoken of two royal bloodlines fighting side by side, but no one had ever witnessed it with their own eyes. Furious, Darius ordered his entire army to charge. The battlefield erupted once again. This time, however, the Star Kingdom soldiers fought with renewed courage. Inspired by Orlan's bravery and Lyra's compassion, they slowly began pushing the Shadow Court backward. Wherever Lyra's magic reached, injured soldiers found their strength returning. Broken trees stood tall once again, and frightened magical creatures escaped safely from the battlefield instead of being consumed by darkness. She refused to use her powers for revenge. Instead, she used them exactly as her mother had wished, to protect life. Watching everything unfold, Darius became increasingly desperate. "If I cannot defeat you," he shouted angrily, "then everything will disappear together." Dark energy began gathering around his body. The ground cracked beneath his feet as an enormous storm of corrupted magic formed above the battlefield. The Wood Elf Guardians immediately recognized what he was doing. "Stop him. He's sacrificing his own life to release forbidden magic." Orlan charged toward Darius without hesitation. The two leaders clashed with incredible force, sending waves of energy across the valley. Although Orlan managed to hold him back, the forbidden spell continued growing stronger. Lyra suddenly remembered her mother's final words from the vision. "You were born to protect life, not destroy it." Closing her eyes, Lyra gently placed both hands over the emerald crown. Instead of attacking Darius directly, she released every ounce of her magical energy into the land itself. A brilliant emerald light spread across the entire valley. Ancient trees burst from the earth. Countless glowing vines wrapped around the corrupted magic, not with hatred, but with the power of purification. The darkness surrounding Darius slowly began disappearing. His forbidden spell collapsed before it could be completed. For the first time in many years, silence filled the battlefield. Darius fell to one knee, staring at his trembling hands. "My power. It's gone." Lyra slowly walked toward him. The soldiers expected her to strike the final blow. Instead, she simply looked at him with quiet sadness. So much suffering happened because of hatred. It ends today. The remaining darkness surrounding Darius completely faded. Without the corrupted magic controlling them, many of his soldiers dropped their weapons. Some looked confused, while others finally realized how many innocent lives had been lost because of endless revenge. The battle was over. Cheers erupted across the valley. The Star Kingdom has won. Long live Prince Orlan. Long live Princess Lyra. Orlan walked toward Lyra before gently taking both of her hands. You saved everyone. She smiled softly. No, we all did. The king and the royal army soon arrived at the battlefield to witness the victory for themselves. Looking around at the restored valley, the king smiled proudly. Today, he announced before both armies, we celebrate not only peace, but a future where bloodline will never decide a person's worth. His words were met with thunderous applause. In the weeks that followed, peace slowly returned to the kingdom. The Shadow Court was dissolved, and the soldiers who had been forced into its service were allowed to return home and rebuild their lives. The borders between the different elf clans gradually reopened, ending years of distrust. Lord Valen and those who had secretly supported his schemes were permanently stripped of their noble titles. Lady Selene, realizing how jealousy had destroyed everything she valued, quietly left the capital to begin a new life far from royal politics. As for Lyra, she was finally recognized before the entire kingdom as the rightful princess of the Wood Elves. Yet despite her royal title, she remained exactly the same kind-hearted person she had always been. She continued visiting villages, helping heal the sick, planting new forests, and making sure no child would ever experience the loneliness she had once endured. Not long afterward, the joyful day everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The palace echoed with laughter as Lyra safely gave birth to 3 healthy babies. The entire royal family gathered to celebrate the arrival of the triplets. The palace, once divided by prejudice and pride, was now filled with happiness and hope. Orlan gently held one of the babies while Lyra cradled the other 2, both of them smiling with overwhelming joy. We've come a long way, Orlan whispered. Lyra looked at him lovingly. We have. She then looked at their children sleeping peacefully in their arms. They'll grow up in a world where they'll be judged by their hearts, not their blood. Orlan nodded. And we'll make sure of it. As the sun slowly set beyond the palace gardens, the Star Kingdom and the reborn Wood Elf Kingdom entered a new era of unity. 2 royal families, once separated by tragedy, were finally connected through love, courage, and hope. The half-elf girl who had once been rejected by everyone had discovered her true identity, awakened her extraordinary magic, found the family she thought she had lost forever, and built a future filled with love alongside the Star Elf Prince who had never stopped believing in her. And that is how the unforgettable journey of Lyra and Orlan came to a beautiful and well-deserved ending, proving that true strength is never found in a person's bloodline, but in the kindness, courage, and love they choose to share with the world.